So I think we're going to get started. So we have a little bit of a presentation of things we'll go over, and then if you can feel free to ask us questions as topics come up, but we also have some time at the very end to go over questions. So if something comes up and you remember later, you can ask at the end.
Okay, so we'll just get going with some introductions. First of all, thank you all again for being here. My name's Alec Nato. I'm a first-year PAF. I am within the Trachtenberg School pursuing my master's in public administration, and I'm placed with the Center for Cyber and Homeland Security at GW. As an undergraduate, I was a political science major.
And I'm Angela Sacco. I'm also a first-year PAF, and I am studying a Master's of Public Policy focused on public health and program evaluation. And I am placed in the Office of the Vice President for Research, and as an undergraduate, I studied international affairs and Chinese.
Hi everyone, I'm Toby Davidell. I am one of 6 PAF advisors that advise the team, and on behalf of all of them, I welcome you to the info session today and look forward to speaking to you during and after.
So we wanted to share just one quick anecdote from our PAF experiences so far with you guys. And I will share one that actually comes from earlier today. So like I said, my placement is with the Center for Cyber and Homeland Security, and I get to do a bunch of very interesting things with them. Part of that responsibility is research-oriented and sort of building a sense of where the field is going and what kind of ideas are being thrown around in terms of cybersecurity, which is the area that I'm focusing on that cyber-homeland dichotomy. So this morning I got to go to the Center for Strategic and International Studies up on Rhode Island Avenue and hear some representatives from the Department of Defense talk about their newly updated cyber strategy and how they're implementing that and what the future looks like in terms of federal government cyber regulations and policies.
So as a PAF, I've had the opportunity to learn program coding, which is not something I'd tried in undergraduate or thought to pursue in graduate school. So I'm glad I was able to learn and have been practicing that to help in my placement.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a quick summary of the PAF program in general. And I'm going to be looking at my notes because this is very detail-oriented. I don't want to miss anything. So just forgive me if I'm not making as much eye contact as I would prefer to. But the PAF program celebrated its 25th anniversary last year. So it was established back in 1989. This means that we have a very large alumni base. Compared to the fact that we accept 6 people on average these days into the program. So for such a small program, we have a lot of very engaged alumni that have been with us for over 25 years now. The PAF family consists of, here's the number, 125 alumni, and 5 to 6 dedicated PAF advisors. And Toby's one of those, like she mentioned. The Presidential Administrative Fellowship. So I'm actually going to mention some of the other members of the advising team. So this includes the executive director, at least one coordinator, an administrative advisor, faculty advisor, and a professional development advisor. So those are all services that will come with PAF: academic coaching, professional development coaching, and those kinds of things. The Presidential Administrative Fellowship offers graduating GW seniors the opportunity to pursue a master's degree at GW and develop professional skills and interests by working in a GW office. So that's sort of the description of PAF in one sentence. And just as further detail, this does not include a medical degree, a law degree, or anything to that effect. These are just sort of what you'd think of to be standard master's degrees. There is also an opportunity to pursue certificate programs in addition to your master's or have something worked out there. But if you have any concerns or questions, ask us those at the end of the presentation. In return for this opportunity, fellows are asked for a 2-year commitment towards advancing the George Washington University community by serving in ambassadorial, academic, professional, and service roles. So tuition and required fees covering a 2 years master's degree program or 42 credits max although PAFs can petition for more credit coverage on a case-by-case basis, will be part of the PAF package. A graduate salary and stipend, which is currently $25,000 a year for 20 hours of work per week, and approximately 5 hours per week of PAF program work, will be paid in 9 equal installments between August 1st and April 30th for work from mid-August through mid-May. There's an optional payment, currently $1,500 per year, to cover part of your GW student health insurance plan if you are enrolled in GW's plan, including international students for whom enrollment is required unless there is a waiver. So that's basically the summary, and Angela is going to take it away with a little description of our academics program.
Yes, so academics within PAF has kind of 2 different areas. There's the formal academic pursuit of you being in a master's program, and within that you receive some assistance from the PAT, which are our advising team members. Specifically, Dr. Kathy Newcomer, she is the director of the Trachtenberg School, and she plays a very close role in helping us kind of navigate our graduate programs, and that is both for students who are in the Trachtenberg School, but also those who are outside of the Trachtenberg School. You also have an opportunity to study abroad. In graduate school, there's a lot of classes that will have short-term abroad periods either during the winter semester, so during winter break, or for the entire summer, and you can use your PAF tuition towards those costs as well if they are GW affiliated. And then there's many opportunities to learn within your cohort. As you can tell, all of us are involved in different graduate programs and also in different work placements, and through them you can kind of get involved with different activities. And we also have weekly meetings during which some of those times are reserved for academic pursuits, and so people will present on topics of their interests, and the academic committee will also put on activities to kind of help us further our learning. And of course, there's also a PAF program that allows you to apply for funding if you want to attend seminars, conferences, or any outside of GW training opportunities.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the placement aspect of PAFs, and I will say that when I was applying, I found the idea of 2 years of work experience to be one of the most attractive aspects of the program, because you're not only pursuing your master's program, but doing it within the context of larger work experience that you can also put towards your future career, and again, the professional development opportunities, which is something outside of the placement. But this placement will require of you 20 hours per week of in-office work, and this is during the academic year. So this is from August through May, and if you choose to remain on in your placement during the summer, which is an option between your first and second years, and even if you work something out with your preceptor going into your first year, that's completely up to you. So you don't have to work for your placement during the summer, but it is an option, and you would be paid separate from your $25,000 stipend. So that would be an hourly wage or something that you'd work with the PAF advising team to set up with your preceptors. But again, that's an option. I know personally for my placement, I did not work with them this past summer. I continued with the internship that I had as a senior, and in going into this next summer, I think I'm actually going to work with my preceptor to find an internship or a job off of GW's campus to, again, supplement my experiences and further propel me down the career path that I want to go in. So it's an option, but again, only an option and not a requirement. So PAFs are also allowed to switch their placements yearly. So you do not have to commit to your placement for 2 years when you are sort of brought on board in your first year. And that is something that is up to the PAF after being advised by the PAF advising team. I know that I plan on staying in my placement for these 2 years because it overlaps particularly well with my interests. But there are sometimes skills that PAFs will be looking for that they will only need a year with their placement to sort of get the experience that they need. And then they might see another opportunity open up for them somewhere else that they want to take advantage of. And just to give a little more background on how the placement is selected for you guys, it's sort of a mutual selection process. So the PAFs and the PAT, which we use to refer to the PAF advising team, will put together a sheet for anybody who is accepted into the PAF program of placements who have expressed interest, or I keep saying placements, I should define that as really any GW office that has space for a PAF. So any task that an office is doing is a task that potentially could be a PAF's placement. And so you'll have opportunities to choose from a set list, and then you will sort of contact them, possibly go through an interview process. But again, they'll see if they want you, you'll see if you want them, whatever placement works out best. But yeah, so that, like I was saying, you can switch between your first year and your second year if that becomes necessary. And one last thing that I want to touch upon is the PAF preceptor relationship. So a preceptor is your supervisor and then some. It's really your supervisor plus added role of mentorship and guidance, and someone who is going to be there for you and hopefully and will be there to sort of guide you in your directions, figure out how they can best steer you towards your goals as a graduate student who is also looking to get these professional development opportunities. So talking about professional development, the learning agreements that PAF has current PAFs undergo with their preceptors are a very important tool towards learning how to set goals, how to have conversations with your supervisors in that context, and how to meet those goals using sort of measured incremental process. And that is something that I think many PAFs do find useful, and always a good habit to get in practice, or to get some practice with. And then finally, there are some check-in meetings between and performance reviews between the PAF preceptor, the PAF, and the advising team. And these happen just to make sure everyone is on the same page. Again, they provide a formal environment in which you can check in, see how your progress is going, air any sort of thoughts you might have on how to make the experience better. But really, it's what you feel you need to talk about with those sort of stakeholders in your experience. But again, the placement is a very big role of your PAF, but you are students first. So it's always important to keep that in perspective. Oh, and I am going to jump into another section, sorry that you have to hear me talk for a little while longer, on professional development. So I've already mentioned it a couple times, but professional development is one of the key focus areas of the PAF program, and that's something that I think a lot of the current PAFs value very highly. So we have a professional development advisor who is very involved with current PAFs, and she helps us go through different professional competencies that are important for any kind of professional. Sorry for using the word professional so many times, but so those competencies include things like learning on the fly, gaining perspective, managing up, which is essentially learning how to manage your managers, those kinds of things that are sort of knowledge areas that you wouldn't necessarily pick up as easily if you didn't have this kind of formal training. So our professional development advisor, Sarah Melita, is extremely experienced in this area and is very good at helping our PAFs sort of gain a sense of control over these different competencies. And again, that comes with individual coaching sessions, and there is in your second year what we call this PAF 180 assessment, which I, being a first year, am not that familiar with. But if you have any specific questions, I'm sure Toby could speak to that.
I can jump in there and just say, has anyone taken that 360 evaluation by any chance? No? Okay. Well, basically, it allows you, your supervisor, your peers to all weigh in onto your performance. And also your supervisees. Since PAF typically don't have supervisees, that's why it's a 180, it's half of a 360. And in that way, your supervisor and peers can weigh in to this process. And it really gives you some feedback outside of yourself to let you know where your strengths are and where some areas of improvement are.
Thank you. And then one last thing that I want to touch upon is the fact that the PAF program is based on a shared governance model. So current PAFs work on a variety of different committees. There's a professional development committee, an academics committee, a selection committee, a service committee. There are enough committees to sort of facilitate the operation of the PAF program. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about professional development is because I am on the professional development committee. So one of the things that we do is just plan the sessions during which current PAFs will teach their peers about these competencies under the guidance of our professional development advisor, Sarah Melita. And these committees work to essentially plan most of what you see here, and I say most because we get a lot of help and instruction from the PAT, and they are very helpful in sort of making sure that the program continues to run while giving us sort of the power to implement our own vision for PAF.
So before we move on to other aspects of being a PAF, do you guys have any questions about academics or professional development? Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's a possibility that you can combine MBA and a certificate program. Do they have to be within the same school?
The question was whether or not you can combine a master's degree and a certificate program from different schools. And I'm saying that for the record of the recording. But good question, and this is something that I actually looked into. And the answer is that you can do that. Again, PAF will pay for your 42 credit master's degree as the baseline. On a case-by-case basis, you can approve to get those extra credits covered, which would probably need to cover like part of your certificate, which your electives in your regular masters don't cover. But yeah, so for instance, if you wanted to, and again, it depends on the school in which your certificate would be in, but if you wanted to pursue a certificate program in the School of Public Health while you're in the Graduate School of Political Management, like that is something that is definitely a possibility. Again, you would work closely with our academic advisor, Kathy Newcomer, and she would help you work through those administrative weeds and figure out how to, build the best academic program for you.
Other than the block on medical school and law school, are there any other limitations to what you can use the PAF for?
It's typically doctorate programs, so PsyDs are not eligible, or doctor in nursings are not eligible. So other than that,
Use it for any master's program?
any master's program, correct.
Including one-year master's programs?
So yes, so dual degree programs.
Yeah.
Yes, so it definitely could be used for that, as long as you apply in your senior year. So you would do 1 year of master's and then be able to extend it out to include a second year or a certificate, so that you're in PAF for a total of 2 years, since it's a 2-year commitment.
Other questions?
At what point in the selection process are you selected for your placement? Like, do you find out you get PAF as well as your placement, or do you find out you get PAF and then interview?
No, so after you're accepted, there's an onboarding process where you meet the rest of the PAD, you meet the rest of the cohort, and part of that, one of the documents that comes with that is a list of the available placements, and you are assigned a member of the PAT to kind of guide you through the process of selecting a placement, and you meet with them and discuss the kinds of skills that you want to develop in your next year or 2 years, and your interests, and you can also review the document of the available placements and see where the skills where you might be able to best accomplish what you want to accomplish in the next year. And so your placement selection, so for example, for Alec, it's very topic specific. He is studying what he does at work. For me, I'm in the Office of the Vice President for Research. I don't aspire to be a research administrator or think I will end up in research administration, but I selected my placement because the kind of projects that I am on align well with what I want to learn how to do skill-wise. So my PAT with Sarah and she kind of helped me navigate that process. And in the off chance that one of the placements doesn't seem to be what you want to be doing, there's also room for kind of creating your own placement in a different office that isn't on the list.
And just before we take more questions, I just want to jump on that for a second. This list, we actually send out applications to departments around February and March. And we collect the applications from those areas and we put it into a packet so that all accepted applicants, PAF applicants, can see it and review it and go on to interviews. If there isn't a good fit, if you don't see anything that could either be a good skill set or a good topic area, that's when your PAT advisor team works with you and sits down with you and really hones into what you want to do. And we have picked up the phone and tried to make things work with departments who hadn't even thought about PAF or even knew what PAF was. By the same token, if you happen to know a professor and really, if they do research or if they have some opening, maybe they haven't heard about PAF, you can certainly ask them if they have the budget to host you for at least 1 year. So that's certainly a possibility too. So there's a myriad of different ways so that you can get your needs met. So I know there were questions on both sides. I'm not sure if I covered it, but.
So for this program, are you only eligible if you're like a recent graduate, or is this something where you can be, like have been out of school for years and then?
This question comes up every year, and it's a great question. And so right now, even though there's been discussion, right now it's only you have to graduate in either December or in May to be eligible for the following year.
So I'm going to move on, and we can, if you have any more questions, well, like I said, there will be room at the end to ask them. So another part of being a PAF is you hold ambassadorial roles within the university. So there's two components to that, one being service, and there's a variety of service opportunities. There is a service committee that helps facilitate and kind of highlights them, but there's also room to volunteer with other PAFs who are organizing events through their placements, or for example, I am one of the student corps members for the Textile Museum, so I give student tours. So there's different ways of becoming involved with service, and of course we also participate in Freshman Day of Service, MLK Day of Service, and a lot of PAFs have served as staff members during the alternative breaks. And people also volunteer on their own time to mentor in schooling or all kinds of different activities. The other part is we do serve and help staff some of the bigger initiatives and events that the university does have. So for example, this year we participated in the first night event with freshmen in the Mount Vernon estate or things of that nature. So that's a great way to get involved with the campus as a whole and also meet other students, meet graduate students, but also alumni become involved with some of those activities as well. So we have an alumni day of service where everyone comes together and serves, and some of the alumni bring their families, so it's a really fun event. So that's one way that we become involved and give back to GW and also the DC community as a whole. And in case you haven't noticed, we haven't told you what we were involved with as undergraduates, and that's not because we forgot, but we purposely leave it that way because when we look at the requirements of what you need to be a PAF, there are some minimum requirements, which I will let Toby go through at the end. But other than that, all we're looking for is that you are able to demonstrate your leadership skills, your commitment to GW, to grow as a PAF, and also contribute to the program. So other than that, it's up to you for how you interpret and what it means to you, to how you are a leader, whether that's through internships, whether that's through campus involvement, that's through service. But so long as you meet the minimum requirements, we encourage you to apply. And one of the PAF's office says, an opportunity that you don't apply for is not an opportunity for you. So we encourage you all to apply, and I'll let Toby go through the basics of what the minimum requirements are.
I love this part of the presentation because it's just like the commercial, where someone gives you all the benefits and then the lawyer comes in and says, all the fine print. So that's me. It's not glamorous, but it's needed. So all applicants must have 60 credits in residence at GW at the time of graduation. I have gotten questions in the past. Does residence mean, do I have to be living in the residence hall? No, it just means that you have to be on campus. Applicants must have an overall 3.25 GW GPA at the time of application. So if you have anything related to study abroad or transfer credits, that doesn't count in this 3.25 GPA. Applicants must have applied to a GW's master's degree program by January 11th, 2016. And so that'll give you winter break to do that application process, plus including taking any standardized tests by that time. As we said, MD, JD, and LLM students are not eligible for PAF. And then the online application is due Friday, October 16th at 11:59 p.m. And applications can be accessed through GWork. That number is 829-473. And recommendation letters are due Friday, October 23rd.
What's that number?
Sure. GWork number 829-473.
And just as an extra note, part of your application will be 2 letters of recommendation, which you can find details on through GWork. But those letters of recommendation will not be due this next Friday, the 16th, like your application. But they'll be the requirement for those is that they'll have to be submitted by Friday, October 23rd. So you'll have an extra week for your recommenders to have them submit those recommendations to us. So finally, before we get into more questions, if you want more information on the PAF program, you can visit our website. I would recommend just Googling GW PAF, Presidential Administrative Fellowship, but it's at paf.gwu.edu. We have a Facebook page that you can check out, facebook.com/GWPAF. There's a Twitter page with the handle at GWPAF. Very creative. And you can also feel free to contact a current fellow. So if you know any students who are currently in PAF, any alums who have been in PAF, feel free to reach out to them. Everybody will be more than happy to answer your questions. If you want to try and connect with someone in a specific academic area or who's working in a specific area, you can come up to Angela or myself afterwards, or Toby, and we can help sort of connect you guys, and that's been done in the past.
And you can also go to the website too. All of the PAF profiles are on there, and their email addresses are there, so you can look at that option as well.
Definitely. And in general, if you have a question that comes to you, 2 days from now, and you say, I wish that I had asked that at the info session, don't worry too much. You can just email it to us at PAF, so PAF, @gwu.edu. And that's about it for our presentation, but we are more than happy to take your questions now if you have any.
What's the acceptance rate, approximately? Like, how many people do apply to that?
Historically, we've gotten about 60 to 75, and we accept 6 per year.
Okay. So, like 10%.
So do you get accepted? When would someone hear back from the program?
So typically it's around just before spring break is when you'll hear back. And then your master's degree application is a completely separate process than PAF, so you'll be hearing that sometime between January and April. And so they're not going to come at the same time. And once you hear from your graduate school, then you can make the decision on PAF.
Have there been cases where you get the PAF but you don't get the graduate? So what happens then?
We actually encourage people to apply to multiple schools at GW. So we've had PAFs get accepted and had to scramble to apply to a graduate school. Unfortunately, they have gotten in. But we just say be proactive. It's free anyway for you all to apply because you are considered alumni and undergrads. And GW lets you apply for as many as you want for free. So I'd say just apply to multiple.
And in terms of the timeline for hearing back from us, is it okay if I give like a brief rundown of what the process looks like?
That's great.
So the final decisions will be given out towards the end of February in that time, but the entire application process for PAF is sort of broken up into 3 stages. So the first stage will be submitting your application by next Friday, and we will review those applications, and based on those, we will make decisions on who to invite to a first round interview, and that's the second round of the PAF selection process, because again, your application is the first step. So you'll go through that interview. From that interview, we will again look back at sort of how those go, send out invitations to a third round interview, and that is the final interview. And that is sort of our last chance and your last chance to learn more about one another before we make those 2 interviews. Yep. And of course, if you get accepted and invited to go further into the process, then you will get many more details on how that works. But I think that rough outline should be helpful too.
I read about like a deadline, like around November 5th. You kind of say if you're like, going to be considered or not. There's something about that on the website. I just want to make sure.
I'm not sure exactly what that November 5th deadline might be.
Okay. It says like you will be contacted on November 5th to say if like you are considered to come. Like,
That might be
Oh.
the cut, just to make sure that you met the 60 credit hours and that you met the 3.25.
like the requirements.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I forget that it's already the middle of October, so I felt like that was like way into the end of the semester. But yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm graduating at the end of December, so I won't be here in January. Are the interviews done by Skype or in person?
So we do have a PAF in our current cohort who graduated in December. I believe that he came back to campus for his individual interview.
I would say it's preferred at that level to come back, but if you cannot come back, if it's out of the country or way too far, then yes, we can make provisions to Skype that in.
You had a question?
What kinds of, so are we, for the interview process, at least for the first round of interviews, is it group interviews? What should we expect if we are to get that far in the process?
Yeah, do you want to take it? Or? Both interviews are individual interviews. So the first round interview is going to be, I don't know how much detail is helpful for you at this point besides that. Yeah, so it's going to be yourself with a panel of, stakeholders in the PAF program. Yeah. Okay. If you guys don't have any other questions now, that's cool. Again, remember the email address that I gave to you, paf@gwu.edu. Feel free to use that. And if you want to come up and ask us questions on more of an individual basis in a second, you can feel free to do that too. But thank you for all coming.